Hello everyone and welcome to a quick episode again on Mr. Ink and a small repair that I want to catch just before it gets worse. And it's one of these nickety jobs where you think I should have actually changed that when I had it all out in situ. And it is, as you can judge by the title, the idler guide for the drive belt, the serpentine belt. It is a known issue on all the petrol engines. If you have air conditioning on your 1.6, you will have one. If you don't, like 50 Shades, you don't have one. For 50 Shades, doesn't have this problem. But on this particular engine, we also have a idler guide. It is merely a piece of equipment to keep the belt nice and taut along a very, very long length. I can tell you, driving many, many pulleys, especially on this engine. So as we can see here, we have a brand new one from SKF. If anybody wants to know the parts number, this is specific for the 1.8 2-litre petrol engines, VKM 34106. That is the one you go for, because SKF are specialists in bearings. Because if you remember when I did the timing belt on this engine, I only changed the timing belt with the new water pump, etc., because that was not my decision. It was Jason's, because it was his car at the time, and I didn't feel a need to change this at that moment in time, which was quite some time ago. But we also bought, obviously with that kit, it was an SKF timing belt kit, and it was a really good one, so it fits well. I think Ruby has also got an SKF timing belt kit. Anything with bearings, water pumps, tensioner pulleys, which will be very similar to this. This is just a big fat bearing that guides the belt round. However, the originals, I'll just get my camera in. Okay, so down here, we've had to obviously move the bottle with its 10mm fixing and just move the power steering reservoir out the way. That is looking decidedly a little bit cleaner, even though I'm still seeing some evidence of muck in that, which is not good. I have to flush that out again, which will happen again. Down here, obviously, we've got the alternator. Down there, we've got the tensioner, which we've got to take off to get this belt off. And we have the idler pulley in question. Now, I am starting to get some noises from this belt area, and 99% of the time, it is these things. Now, some people would diagnose an alternator bearing issue. Well, this is a brand new Napa alternator. The chances of that are very, very minimal indeed. This is where the sound is coming from. I use my stethoscope, my mechanic stethoscope, to just probe that pulley while it was spinning, and it sounded rather graunchy. So I want to change it before it fails, because if they fail, well, you'll know about it. Your belt will come off and your car will cut out, because there's no electricity, there'll be no power steering, etc. So we don't want that to happen. Ideally, at this stage, you might want to change the belt if you haven't changed the belt, but we know that this belt has been changed in the last 12 months, so all good there. Other things to consider. This tensioner, these tensioners are roughly about 60-70 pounds, and again, SKF will make you a complete, I've got new tensioners, but to change that is unnecessary unless you think that there is a bearing issue with that. I've only known one instance where a tensioner has actually failed on any Mark 1 Focus, which is quite unlucky. And in fact, actually, you'd probably be able to spot it a mile off. It will probably be making some really shirking sounds, especially under load, where there'll be more strain from the alternator, the power steering, and especially the air conditioning compressor. That's when you'll find that things like that are not doing its job. It's not tensioning properly, and it's making a bearing sound. So for instance, if you stick on your heated windscreen, you're increasing load. If you put your air conditioning on, the moment where you press those switches, that's when the load is placed on the alternator, and you'll know if there's a problem. If the belt is screeching, it might just be the belt. But if the belt's been changed for a newer one, I'd start looking at the tensioner, especially if there's a really graunchy, whirry sound. And that's what these bearings can do. This bearing is nice and brand new, and it comes with its bolt, which is attached to it. It doesn't come off. But what I have got to do is take the bottom engine cover, timing cover off. Well, the belt cover, I should say. And I'll tell you why we do that. Because if I just take this away, I can slacken off that bolt Just put it in here. Now we haven't got much leeway, but I have got enough. Do it while the belt's attached. Ugh, that's gone. There we go, that's gone, that's loose. Yeah, that's loose. Oh, lovely. That's lovely and loose. Okay. Now when you're tightening that thing back up, you can do it from the top side, but you're going to take this tensioner off. Now, this tensioner, again, I believe it's a 15mm. So you have to reach all the way down there and get your tensioner. Come on. Now, to unloosen this belt, oh, come on. There we go. Now, you can just do that. And that belt is now loose enough to come off. You see that? You turn it to the right to loosen off that tensioner, because that tensioner is pulling that way, okay? So it's not lefty-loosey on a tensioner, guys. It's the opposite way around. It always is, okay? Righty-loosey, okay? You're pulling the tensioner away from the belt. Now, you can do it up here, fine. But I warn you, you cannot do this with that engine mount in the way on the top side. So the way of doing it is you take the wheel off and take the bottom engine cover off. I'm actually going to do that right now with my 8mm. Tell you what, still got a bit, you can see there's a little bit of engine oil, just a little bit. Oh, there's a little drip there. You see where just a little drip of engine oil there. That is the breather bloody gasket. I tell you what though, that stop oil leak seal has cured some leaks. There was a leak from the crankshaft rear seal. That has been stopped. That's nice and dry, that is. I'm really impressed. In fact, this entire engine was covered in oil at the bottom. This sump, well, I'll tell you something, I don't like the look of that. I think this is going to have to be changed at some point, and I'm going to have to put some new silicone sealant on. That is on the cards. Okay, give that a bit of a clean up in a second. Now we have massive amounts of room to get to that blasted tensioner where my hand is. Just there, sorry, excuse me. That's the idler up there. But we just want to get to that tensioner. Now we're going to bring the spanner down and we're going to whip the belt off this way. Just inserting my 15mm. Turn it. We want to sort of come so the spanner is... So the spanner literally... You need an aviation spanner, by the way, guys. A long aviation. And push. There we go. And that should be enough for this to... Ooh, it's not quite enough. See what I mean? So you've got to start your spanner off down here. Okay, that's slack. 2 seconds. Okay, just slacken that belt, get it around from the power steering, and once it's off, it's off. There we go. Job done. The trick is getting this. There we go, it's all loose. Okay, so my spanner's still attached there to that tensioner. Can you hear this? I'll try that again if you didn't hear that. Whoops. A minute. That is nasty. That is definitely the cause. Okay. So, just wind it off as slowly as possible. In fact, I could probably take it out with my bare hand now. Yep. Lovely. Now, that is a nasty, nasty sound, I'll tell you. Lovely. Good. There was just enough room. I was just thinking just then to get that bolt into that hole where this goes, honestly, oh dear, oh my goodness me, it's split apart. That's not the way it should be. Wow. Yeah, I think that's meant to be attached. Yeah. Tell you what, that's come apart really badly. That centre bolt is supposed to be splined in. This, I believe, is an additional piece on the back side. Right. That's awful. That's why you change these before their time. And it is the original Ford one, as we can see on the back side. Been a shame. Right, escalating quickly, this is, isn't it? Oh, by the way, before you fit this, please check the tensioner. Just spin the pulley like you've spanned the old one. I'll tell you what, if I'm being really picky, there's the tiniest bit of bearing noise, tiny. That's not enough, nowhere near as much as the old one that's just completely shat itself. So no, but that is something probably in the future. I think the tensioners will be the next thing that owners will be changing. But at 25 years of age, around the age bracket we have, or 27 I should say, I wouldn't regard the tensioner as a problem, but just check it while you're doing this. But these are a problem, so if you haven't changed these, and these are the originals, please do so. So just get it, might have to high the engine up just a little bit more. Go, lovely. Okay, it's just to avoid cross-threading this. We can actually torque it up properly, and this belt will go underneath, but we'll sort that out in a second. We use the torque wrench, there we go. Now the new bolt on this is 15 millimeters, believe it or not. Now it will spin with the bolt. Oh, there we go, straightforward. Yeah, no problems. All done there. Lovely jubbly. Not too tight, and then we can get the belt routing all over the place again. So needs to go over the alternator. This is where it's going to get fiddly, and now I'm going to have to fight with the damn tensioner again. Here we go. For any of you who are struggling as to a technique how to do this, before you even put the spanner on that tensioner pulley, is to put it around the alternator, under the idler pulley that we've replaced, and then put it kind of, probably a little bit less, just on one little tiny tooth of that power steering reservoir. In fact, actually, no. I think I might need to put it on a bit more than that, just a few. And then when it comes to the aircon, right, it's gone round the water pump. It's just about virtually on the water pump, because it goes round down to the aircon compressor pulley, which is, it's not on. That's the one I've got to put it over, because it's the one nearest to your hand. That's the one you put it over on. And it goes around the crankshaft, which it's barely on, but again, that will be coming on as soon as the bottom piece goes over the aircon compressor. And it's fully over the other side of that crankshaft sprocket, and just about around this water pump. So it goes round, down, across, back up and round the alternator, and then back down to the tensioner. Okay, now I may need a couple of hands for this. Right, as you can see, I'm almost on. Just trying to, what you've got to do, guys, I've just taken it off, the tensioner's on now. You've got to try and walk this belt on as best as possible and over the water pump. Can you see that it's not quite on yet, but it's on. It's on that pulley, aircon, almost the crankshaft, and it is around the alternator mostly, but we've got to keep walking it on. If you have to turn the crank just to spin the belt round, that's absolutely fine, you can do that, but I'm just going to keep going and walk this on the rest of the way. Right, we are all on, guys. I just had to push this over the alternator pulley because that was starting to slip off. What I was doing is using my 8-0 ratchet to turn the crank while pushing the belt just over the last sort of ledge, and it's now fully over the water pump. And just make sure that this belt is fully over the water pump and it's riding on this new guide really nicely. But as long as you've got it there and down on the tensioner pulley, that's all good. In fact, when I took the tensioner off, it barely moved, and that's what you want. But my goodness me, this is the toughest belt I've ever fitted to any car. Actually, to be honest, I prefer fitting a stretch belt. At least I know where I stand with that, but my goodness me, you have to be careful with your fingers because this tensioner is under enormous strain. But there you go, guys. I'm just going to pop the engine mount back in. For those people who don't know, around 80 newton meters to these are around 60-ish. I'll check that out in a second. But that's really it. So I'll leave you be and do a bit of cleaning up, and that is it. That is all you need to know about changing an idler pulley on a Mark 1. As you can hear by that one, I just identified a sound, a noise, very quickly, and my experience tells me on these cars it's that is a weak point of the drive belt system, and thankfully it's the cheapest one to replace. If you had to replace the tensioner, which I'm sure we will be doing more and more as the cars age, because that also has a bearing and the bearings have a lifespan, we're probably talking £60–70 of that. This bearing costs £25, and I know for a fact that it's SKF. It will probably last the rest of the car's life, to be honest. But there you go, and I'll tidy up and well, we'll go for a bit of a start. I'd say that's a win. A little bit less chirpier than before, just to my trained ear, but not much difference. But the idea is, you know that there's been a difference. Preventative maintenance. Give it a go on your Mark 1 and don't wait for things to happen. Get there first. Take care.